What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in effect. Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here. Repping America, the center, common sense, freedom, and peace in Israel. This day is going to be a bit, I don't know how this is going to go. I spent the morning scanning in photos of my dad, my family, for a memorial that we're doing for my dad. He was very loved in the community. Lots of people are coming from far and wide. And, you know, going back over some of my childhood photos, I know how lucky I was to have a mom and dad who were, you know, they were my adopted parents. I won the adoption lottery. And because of their money and sometimes influence, I was afforded second, third, fourth chances. And it wasn't just because they kept giving me chances. It was that I took one of those chances and it finally latched on, and I stopped being a manic, depressive, drug-addicted alcoholic. And that goes from my mom and my dad. You know, it's a tough time right now, you know, trying to deal with the aftermath of my dad's passing. But he taught history, and he taught me that through history, we can see the consequences of actions, and we can see the results of different decisions, and we can learn from history. And we shouldn't go around being ashamed of history and trying to change it. But enough about me. Let's get this shindig poppin'. My brother, actually, who's a despicable human being and a stark, raving, hypocritical liberal, decided he'd watch one of my videos. And, you know, I was hoping for some constructive criticism, maybe see some middle ground, something like that. But all I got was, why should I listen to you? You're not a Middle East expert. No, I'm not. I'm not an expert. I just know a lot about history, and I read and I try to convey what I've read to the people who might watch or listen to my show. That's all I do. I'm not any smarter than anybody else. I listen to smart people. I mentioned my dad at the start. I listened to him. I listened to my mom. The way they raised me, my dad taught me certain lessons in life, and my mom taught me certain lessons in life. And that's kind of the way I look at politics right now. I take a little from the blue, I take a little from the red. Mix them together, purple. It's that simple. But one of the people who I really like to follow and learn from is Thomas Sowell. He's a black political philosopher. He's 93, I believe. He's seen a lot. He's seen through a lot. And he has a great quote. And that's what I want to start the show with, because it kind of frames the whole reason purple exists, because of what I'm seeing out of the blue and the red. Thomas said, if you want to help, you tell them the truth. If you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. And that's what's going on in politics right now. Rand Paul backs that up with this quote: our founders never intended for Americans to trust their government. Our entire Constitution was predicated on the notion that the government was a necessary evil, to be restrained and minimized as much as possible. Yeah, we don't need government interference in every aspect of our life. Because when we allow the government to control every aspect of our life, invariably, it ends up being taxed. That's the big problem I see with a lot of what, especially here in California, Newsom's doing, with all the requirements for building and everything that we have to pay so much more for. Our gasoline, our food, everything is more expensive here. Housing, forget about it. But that's because we allowed the government into every aspect. I'm all for safety regulations, okay? I don't know where I draw the line exactly, but I know a lot of this environmental stuff that we do and a lot of the processes that we've put in place are why everything's so damn expensive here. They're talking about building homeless shelters for one little room, $800K. That's not going to work out long term. We can't trust our government to do everything. Our federal government should be handling things outside of our borders or out our borders, which apparently they don't. I don't really need my government telling me what chemicals can be in food if they're not inherently dangerous. They're banning Skittles because it has something that may cause cancer. Everything around us can cause cancer in one form or another. Do you know, there's two philosophies that really, it boils it all down. It's not really red, it's red and blue, but beyond a political affiliation. Two philosophies. One states that with enough hope and money, any problem can be solved. The opposing philosophy is that not all problems can be solved, but have to be managed. Like crime, right? Hope and money. We let criminals out, they reoffend because criminals aren't going to grab that second or third chance. It's not what they do, they take advantage. For most things, drugs, alcohol, crime, all of that stuff, you have about a 30% success rate, and that's how you manage it. You have to manage that other 70% who aren't going to seize those chances. And that's what leads to the street people, not homeless, because homeless has a viable solution. Somebody loses their job, you can put them in an apartment. But when they're fucking crazy or just brain rotted out on dope, you can't just put them in a room and expect them to succeed. Climate change is another one. Yeah, we can do more. We can do better. But what they're proposing is so expensive and so fraught with landmines that it's just going to explode in our face. And education. Education sums it up the best. The problem is when you have an unsolvable problem and the attack is a flagrant waste of money, we all pay. But I know people all around me, hardworking people, barely getting by. And our government here in California, they have the high gas taxes. They have excise taxes on everything. They get 30% on weed. Cigarettes are an extra $2, $2 a pack. And where's all that money going? It gets siphoned into the general fund and gets dispersed to all of these crazy projects that will never work. Millions and millions, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars out there. Our car registration is so high, it's not even comparable to other states. And all this cash being wasted on bums and junkies, bullet trains. Something like $800 million for environmental studies for the bullet train? Or they just use it for their political pandering and straight up corruption. They give money to agencies to patrol the homeless and give the homeless food and all of this. Then that agency gives back money in campaign donations. They spend all of this money getting people elected who do horrible jobs. Millions and millions of dollars were wasted putting an idiot like George Gascon in charge of the district attorney's office. We had a very fine district attorney, Jackie Lacey. Not perfect, but who is? There are no perfect people. There are no perfect countries. There's no perfect states. There's no perfect cities. Everything has its problems. But the solution is not hope and gobs of cash, because when they're just throwing gobs of cash at everything, where are they getting it from? They're getting it from us. And who does it affect? The poor, the middle class. It affects the majority of people, but yet the majority of people still keep voting for this. They have to see that not all problems can be solved. They can only be managed. And if there is indeed no solution, they create a fake solution. Kids are failing in school. They're failing their graduation assessments. So we have a low graduation rate. Oh, no, we don't look good when compared to Louisiana. I don't know. I'm probably wrong about that, but whatever. We look bad because we don't have high graduation rates here in California or Oregon or wherever. So remove the assessments. Look at this. 98% of our kids are graduating. I mean, they can't read at grade level. They can't do math at grade level, but they graduated. My parents worked in the public school district. I saw up close and personal through my own schooling and through what they had to go through. Oh, the amount of effort that was put forth to educate children in the essential things of life. Home economics, wood shop, math, English, science, history, physical education. Where is that all gone? Where has that all gone? So much money going to the people up above that you can't have home economics anymore? Or is home economics, is that not politically correct? It may not be politically correct, but I'll tell you something. It's vital. It's vital. When I was in middle school, I learned how to make pants. In woodshop, I made a table. When I see a problem around the house, I try to fix it, but I also know where I should just stop and hire somebody. I just saw South Park, and that was the crux of the episode. All the white collar people couldn't get stuff done. They would ask Siri. Siri would tell them to hire a handyman. Pretty soon, all the handymen had enough money and they had too much work, and society started to fall apart because people didn't know how to do things. Is that the world we want to live in? Where we just pass everybody by, but they're completely incapable? Then they turn around after all of this and they brag about graduation numbers. Because what does that mean? If there are no standards, then everybody graduates. But what have you accomplished? You have dumb kids who will now be eligible for crippling college loan debt. And they'll have to eventually subsist on government handouts. And they'll never dare to vote Republican. That's what they want. I've said it time and time again. As long as you can vote for the person with the D next to their name, then everything's fine. They're doing the work of the Klan. If your goal was to have a bunch of dumb minority kids out there to slave away and clean your frickin' toilets, congratulations. Because that's what you're creating. You're creating an entire class of people who are undereducated and will have to compete against people from other states and other countries where education still means something. But here in California, all it means is you have been initially indoctrinated into their way of thinking. College will finish you off. If you finish college, because what happens? You drop out of college, you still have the debt. If you graduate, you have a meaningless diploma. And all of this because jobs, basic jobs, require college education. Stuff that didn't used to require a college education now does. And after the college probably just passes them right through to pump up their own graduation numbers and equity and all of that shit, where does it end? Medical school? Law school? I mean, are you just going to push people through medical school and you're going to have doctors who can't tell their ass from their elbow? Where does it stop? You know, and as you now have to get more and more college to actually have it matter, will someday PhDs be required to push paper at a paper company? That seems to be where we're heading. And if you don't think that's where we're heading, in Portland, that's exactly what they're doing. They give a standardized assessment test, but they no longer use it to judge readiness to graduate. Hey, are you ready to graduate? Doesn't matter. Graduated. Look at our numbers. 97%. We have the highest graduation rate of Samoans in the entire country. We are the best. But if all of those so-called marginalized groups are just pushed through, how is that going to look for the adult population? So yeah, Gavin Newsom visited Winnie the Pooh to get more ideas on how to run California. And Chinese American groups are outraged. You know, they love their country, China, but they hate the people who run it. They fled the communists, or they're Christians who had to get the hell out. Newsom did talk a little bit about human rights and stopping illegal fentanyl, but that's not important because he literally straight up called it his climate focus tour. So he went to Hong Kong and China and saw all the sites and met with the local leaders about electric vehicles and electric public transit on our dime? Great. Because the number one problem facing California right now, it's not crime, it's not homelessness, right? It's not people having to move out, the high cost of living, failing education system. No, climate change. Don't focus on the things that might actually have a solution. Focus on the things that are just a fucking fantasy. And then go and visit with the people who are doing the least. Did he talk about any of that? No. He didn't talk about the genocide against the Uyghurs, the lack of freedom of press. No. It's a country that blocks most of the internet. Whoa, I'm going to go over there and talk about climate change. What a dickhole. And then he comes back and signs a bill mandating diversity reporting in venture capital, but vetoes a similar bill aimed at his office. So he vetoed the bill that would have required an ethnic breakdown of its appointees. The same day, he signed a bill requiring that venture capital firms report the racial and sexual diversity of companies they invest in. We don't need the government stepping in to do this shit. It is illegal to not hire people based on race, creed, color, gender, all that stuff. It's already illegal. Companies that do that get called out nowadays. The citizenry speaks. And companies have to make changes or lose public support. You know what I mean? But no, his office is exempt. So he could, it speaks for itself. Rules for thee, not for me. Those are the words of a king, an emperor, a dictator. And that's what we are seeing out of the Democrats right now. The Democrats are so full of themselves. They think that if they just ran things like a dictator and forced us to follow everything they say, everything's going to be okay. But none of their plans are working. So why should we believe this? Why do people continue to believe this when we see failure after failure after failure after failure? Look around you. Look at the cost of things, especially here in California. That's blue politics. That's hope and gobs of money. So Israel has opened up the ground offensive in Gaza. They're bombing the tunnels. It's not looking good over there, but I fully support what they're doing. They were attacked. They were attacked like we were attacked at Pearl Harbor. It's just the way it is. People can run their mouths all they want. But for one thing, this ain't our choice. We had nothing to do with this starting. Hamas attacked. Israel is responding. But of course, college campuses, I'm going to let somebody else sum it up. Frisco Ace right here. Just another lame excuse for not going to school. Down below, Vered, whatever that is. I can't read that. I'm thinking that might be Hebrew. I don't know. But at Peach Buttercup, I like that name. They didn't walk out in solidarity with innocent people at the rave that were killed and raped and burned alive, and babies and seniors that were taken, but with the terrorists, and yes, with the terrorists, without knowing the facts. Again, if you're trying to help yourself, tell them what they want to hear. Rile up all of the students, because you know that the people who are going to push back against these student demonstrations for Palestine are going to be Republicans. Look at those mean people on the right standing with Israel. There is no peace with these terrorists. The side that stands with Palestine would be outlawed in Palestine. Liberals, progressives, non-religious types. That'd be outlawed. There wouldn't be another political party, because when Hamas got power, they basically killed off the leaders of all the other rival factions. The side that supports Palestine would freak out if Trump was elected. They would demand the removal of the radical righties. But they can't understand that until Hamas and other radical elements within Palestine and the Middle East are extinguished, Palestine will never be a reality. It never will be. If you talk about two countries, you could only make peace with your enemy if your enemy stops wanting to destroy you. You make peace with Palestine and Hamas look what they did. Look what Hamas did. Look at it with an open mind and realize Israel had no choice. There's some stuff. You got a problem with your dog too? No, mine is well trained, says I ran with Hamas. Even Joe's dog's scared of that. That's what the reality is. I would have no problem standing with the people of Palestine once Hamas and Iran are removed. Once the Palestinians just live in peace, because look it up for yourself. Palestinians are Arabs, and Arabs operate freely in Israel. They could even serve as judges. They could serve in the military. There is no apartheid in Israel. The problem is when you are associated with a terrorist organization bent on destroying Israel, Israel ain't going to like you. Yeah. See, this sums up Hamas. Hamas clarifies they only want Israel to cease fire. Why is that so hard? Why has that belief been politicized? I mean, I thought we had it bad when we had that last thing. That thing that started with a C. Started with a C. Hamas clarifies they only want Israel to cease fire. That's what the left and the West are saying right now. That's not a solution. There's only one solution, and that is the end of these radical groups that seize power. Hamas is not doing this for ideology. They're not doing it in the name of God. They're doing it in their own name, for their own power. And they have to employ absolute brutality because, much like Democrats here in California and even the United States, none of their shit works. That's the truth. They might be able to keep it going village by village, but as a country, that kind of attitude that your number one goal is the death of your neighbor, it's never going to work. And here's another thing that'll never work. Biden deploying 20,000 climate activists and making you pay for it. Yeah, that's what they are. They're climate activists. It's a make-work program for political progressives at the expense of working households. The Climate Corps, Climate Corps, will train young people to advance environmental justice while tackling climate change. Right, okay. You know, why don't you just pay them to count grains of sand on the beach? They're going to get free housing, transportation, and even uniforms. Today, it's 20,000. If they get the next election, it's going to jump up another 100. You're going to have another 100,000 people out there championing green energy and veganism and all those things that whatever that side supports. Right. Okay. And of course, AOC wants to expand it. She wants to make the program eligible for student loan forgiveness. Yeah, not nurses, not doctors, not like people who volunteer and provide an actual service. No, people who are going to continue to convince people about climate change. We need to clean up our air. We need to clean up our act. Everybody fucking knows that. But the direness of it all and the expense of it all needs to be dialed back. Ask yourself this. Two things. Why don't we use more nuclear reactors? They're pretty green. And why aren't hybrids a good, reasonable compromise being pushed? Why does it have to be all electric? We know it's not going to work. We know that we're going to run out of materials. They are actually touting a battery right now that should replace our current batteries, but it is made using a substance that is a byproduct of oil refining. If we're not refining oil, we can't make that product. We would have to refine oil to make that product. So once we refine that oil, what should we do? Just dump it? These are not our solutions. We do not need people spending taxpayer dollars trying to convince people that we need to go green. Because if we really felt that we needed to go green, or if that was economically viable, that's what we would do. That's what we would do. We would drive electric vehicles if they were better, if they were cheaper. But they're not. And for most people, charging them at home is never, ever going to be an option. Eventually, what? They're just going to build a solar panel on top of the car? Cut the aerodynamics down to zero? So we got a Speaker of the House and head cat herder. He's concerned about Biden's cognitive decline, just like the rest of America. He had an adopted black son who's not involved in his public life because at the time of the Speaker's election to Congress, Michael, the son, was already an adult with a family of his own, and he didn't want to be involved in their public life. That's why this exists, because I don't want my family involved in my whatever political life. I got a little bit of concern in that. I don't know Ukraine. That's kind of a gray area. I think we're running out of money there. Pro-life, I'm not a big fan of that. He voted against certifying Biden's election and was part of Trump's legal team. I don't know. Sort of strikes me as somebody who just goes where he's needed. So I don't know that being on the legal team was that big of a deal. I don't know. He voted for Jim Jordan. I guess Turning Point's putting this up as though it's all positive. So I've got to figure that it's maybe 50-50. But I don't know. I'm just glad the damn thing's over with. And if this is true, that would be great. Because we need a different kind of Republican. I don't know if he's the one to end the whole pro-life thing since he's pro-life. I mean, that's one of the things that I admire about Nancy Mace. She may be the first, at least known, Republican to be pro-choice. And like us, Mike Johnson's family and friends stunned to learn he's a congressman. Yeah, I'd never heard of him. He's from Louisiana. I don't know. At least it's not one of the people who's really stained, but I'm sure we're about to hear all the ways he's stained in the next couple of days. Thanks, CNN. Leave you on a little high note here. Study finds men will purchase literally any object described as tactical. Tactical candle company. There are tactical candles out there. Oh, man. We are just so manipulated nowadays. In my generation, we got VCRs and we learned how to time shift. And, I never had to watch commercials. Then I got a TiVo, and same thing. And then the cable boxes. Well, the cable boxes eventually stopped you from fast forwarding through commercials. But oh man, the floodgates. We are attached to our cell phones all the time, getting ad. Now you just slap tactical on it and men buy it. And we're going to close with this. 700 days of Build Back Better, yet nothing is built, nothing is back, and nothing is better. I think if you nitpick this, maybe you can find a few things that you personally think were built or are back or are better. I don't really see it. I see a lot of people struggling out there. I see a lot of dark days ahead. I've never been more worried about our country having to go to war than I do right now. Ever. I've never seen it. When we did Desert Storm and the Iraq and the Afghanistan, it wasn't the world. We have Iran, China, and Russia. We have a pretty formidable North Korea, if you just want to be nice to that guy. But we're on the edge right now. And I wholeheartedly wish that I was being hyperbolic, but I'm not. That's how I feel. With everything that's going on, I think we have lost focus, like we saw with Gavin Newsom, and we've seen with Joe Biden. They're focused on their green. They're not focused on anything that's actually important. And they're certainly just trying to whitewash the pending doom. If you can't see where we're at right now, just look at history. And history will show you we are right on the edge. And I think purple's the only thing that can pull it back. Whew. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you liked it. I hope you subscribe. I hope you do whatever you can to help this channel. I appreciate ya. Thanks for watching my video. Peace, y'all. Love one another. Dance it out.